Thank you for joining my session, Boost Your Developer Workflow. First, a little bit about me. I like skiing. That's what the picture says. One of the pictures from recently, from a couple of years ago, after Corona. My name is Giliam. I come from the Netherlands. I live in Gouda. And since 2 months, I'm working for Quality as a senior Oracle Apex consultant. Before I was an Apex consultant as well, but I switched to do this kind of conferences more often. Well, I put some contact information over here, so if you want to reach me on Twitter, email, LinkedIn, whatever. Someone sent me a blue sky invitation today, so maybe I can add it later on. But if you have questions or want to chat about something, then please let me know. How it all started. Hi, Philip. How it all started. Back in 2007, I started my Oracle career, and it was back in the days with Oracle Database 9i, Designer, Forms, Reports. Who does know Forms and Reports? Still working with it? Yes. Really? All right. And in 2010, one of my customers asked me, well, we have a project about Apex, and do you want to be involved in that? And that's where my whole Apex career started. We're making a switch because I did a lot of projects and stuff. And in 2019, I even became an Oracle Certified Associate and Professional on Apex and the database. I did that on Kscope, actually. And in 2022, I started public speaking and organizing events, which is 1 year ago, so it's fairly new to me. And because of that, in 2023, a couple of months ago, I received my ACE Associate Award, which I'm really happy with. All right, let's talk about tech. I have a couple of subjects, so it's not one talk about one subject. So the first part will be about the Apex Spotlight search. Then we have static file editing, a little bit about predefined responsiveness, later more on that, and some quick tips if we have still time, because the beer is waiting after all. All right, Apex Spotlight. Before I start, who's using Apex 20, 21, 22, or older? 21?
What was the question exactly?
The question is, are you still using Apex 20 or below?
No.
No. Are you using Apex 21? 21, 21.2, 22, 23.1. Awesome. 23.2. I knew. Well, let me start. When I was navigating back in the days, you will recognize. You had to click on in the Apex Builder on an application. You click in your page where you want to go to. You realize you want to go to your shared components. Clicking up there. Then you realize, or you click on your static application files. And by the time I'm there, I realize, oh my, I needed to be in another application for the right static application file. So, there is a Spotlight search to navigate quickly. What it's often used for is when I activate the Spotlight search, and I'm typing in this case, I want to know whether a certain string is being used somewhere in all of my applications, and I'm searching for that, and I'm getting a result set, clicking through it, etc. But I can also use it to navigate, because I can use, in this case, an application ID or page ID, in this case 120. That's what I often know. I know my application number, I know my page number. Or application aliases and page aliases, or shared components. And in 1.2, they added a direct shortcut for all the shared components in your shared component tab. So you can go to your static application files or workspace files, list of values, plugins, REST components, or every other shared component there is. It's very easy to navigate from one to another if you know your application number and the component you need, instead of clicking all the way through Apex. A little demo. So I'm logging in here, going to the app builder. Sorry, old applications. I can go to my shared components. In this case, I'm going to page 20, just as an example. Or I can go to my shared components in application 200. And immediately I switch to another application. Now I'm going to my static application files, workspace files. And as you can see, there are a lot of options to navigate to. It's even possible to go directly to my create application item. So instead of clicking all the way through your application, you might have a look at this in how fast or what is the short key for that certain component I need to be and to navigate with this Apex Spotlight search. Who uses it like this? He does, I know. Cool. Okay, next part. Edit files like a pro. Okay, back in the days. The reason why I asked you whether which version of Apex you were using is because we're starting with Apex 21.1. If you're using Apex 21.1 and need to edit your static application files, for example, your CSS files or your JavaScript files, or well, that are the most, in my opinion, used files where I work with day to day. So, what do you need to do? You're going to your shared component, to your static application files, you click on the download button, a modal pops up, you click on the download button, your file will be downloaded, you open your file in whatever tool you like, you do your changes, you save it, go back to Apex, upload your file, etc., etc. So you give it the directory, and then finally it's uploaded. Imagine you're making a mistake. I have to do it all over again. So if you're smart, you can use that old file, which is already downloaded, but still you have to save it and then go back to Apex and upload it and everything. And then there's the Apex Builder extension. Stefan Dobrer, back in the days, was working for Foex, and he thought this can be more smart, be done more smartly. So he came up with a solution and compatible with all the familiar or famous browsers. So another demo. Going to my static application files. Remember the old way I just showed you. We're going to our static application files, and now I have a plugin, Foex open source, loaded, and now I have a select list at the top where I can select any file which is in my which is there, and immediately edit these files in line within Apex. Way faster than all the downloading, uploading, etc., etc., right? So here I'm adding a new background, black. I'm saving it, and I'm done. There it is. I think Oracle saw that this guy was smart, because in Apex 21.2 they hired Stefan, and the first thing he did was build that into Apex natively. Awesome. Let's see how it works then. So you go to the download button. We have seen these before. It's not there anymore, right? It's removed. How it works now? You go to your static application files, you see your files, you click in your file, and like the previous example, you can immediately edit your file. Making another color here. I think it will be pink or magenta. Pink. Cool. So the improvement over doing this from Apex 21.1 and below has been made possible by this Apex Builder extension by Foax. But if you're on 21.2 or higher, it's already natively built in. So that's what we saw, right? But what if we have a closed environment and you cannot install plugins and you still are on Apex 21.1 or below? So there's no way to install any plugin. Or you need Git integration. Or you want one tool to do everything. Your database stuff, your Apex stuff, send that to Git, modify a table, modify a view, etc. Now, that's what I wanted to do more smartly. I use Visual Studio Code a lot, and I wanted to have my tool being able to communicate with Apex over all the metadata views which are available. So what are we going to do? We have Apex, we have Visual Studio Code, and maybe you have Git. This is a little architecture about the situation. So we have Visual Studio Code over here, and we have Apex over here. And in this case, Apex is also your database, which contains all the tables and views, and etc., etc. It might be another schema, doesn't matter, but it's one database in this picture. We have SQL to connect to those databases, and we have Git over here, if you use that. And what I did was I created scripts which connected through SQL and uses JavaScript or SQL commands to communicate with the database, to send my file to the database, like compiling a new view or modifying a table, creating a package, whatever. And on the other hand, downloading exports from Apex, so I can see all the differences, sending them to Git, and modify. Maybe if you are well, it's also possible to do a modification in Visual Studio Code in Apex and then send it to the database. So as soon as it's done, your Apex application is already changed. You don't need to do that from Apex. So what can I do? Download Apex application, and you might have seen if you downloaded this one big file, but you can also ask whether you want all the files independently in the structure of Apex. So you have all your components in individual files. You can download static files, but as a source, and that's exactly what I want. And I can upload static files as a source. And in the database, I can, of course, run a script, run a query, generate my DDL objects, sending them back to, getting them from the database and then committing them to Git. And to do that, there's a little bit of structure needed, because the scripts need to know where they are in the folder structure to know where to communicate with Apex. So what did I do? I have a project root, I have an Apex folder and workspace name, my applications, my static files, and of course Apex downloaded has a folder structure. For example, if you have application 100, it's F100, and then you have this folder structure underneath. And you have your static application or workspace static files. Furthermore, you have also your database objects per schema ordered on your file system. Well, let's do a little demo. Oh. This one. So, for example, I created a new package over here, SOUG demo, which is more appropriate for this conference, right? So I created a new package over here. Here's the code. And what I'm doing is I'm activating a task. I will come back to that later on. But I'm activating a task. So I'm running a task. You can configure yourself. And I'm saying I want this code run as a script over here to the database. Now, yeah, let's first do this. What it does, it connects to SQL to your database and executes a script. As you can see over here. Can you read it? Yeah. Over here, creating package SOUG demo, package SOUG demo compiled. Another option, let's do this with the body as well. As you can see over here, and this is fairly new, previously I did this on my local machine, but I have a new laptop now and I needed to do that on the cloud. So it's also possible on the cloud, because over here I'm setting my cloud config and my database is running on the cloud, on the Oracle Cloud. Awesome. So what I'm going to do is, you know, what happens as well is other developers create other stuff, another package, right? So we need to have that other package as well. So what we're going to do is, I'm running another script, export database schema object. And in this case, yeah, this is my schema. And I want to have the new package body of HROG demo. Again, connecting to the database and getting from DBMS, I lost the package, but the metadata package to get the new package data. And if there's a change, it will pop up. But now I want to do this within Apex, right? Because there are also tools to do this from Oracle. So now I'm going to do this for Apex. And you saw it already in the demo, but I have an application, which is 100. So what I'm doing is I want to export my Apex application 100. It will export all the different files. It will export my static files and create a complete file for delivery to the next test environment or UAT or whatever. And as you can see, I did a lot of changes because I did an upgrade to 23.1. So there are still a lot of changes there to go. But I can see the changes from each component individually. And I can send this to Git or let my code reviewer know, as a code reviewer know the developer that something has not been completely built as spec'd, right? Yes. So another thing you can do is, let's go to the static files, because I was busy with the static files. Over here, database, Apex, static files. Over here, let's create a new, because this is what I do often. I work in Visual Studio Code in combination with Apex, but I wanted to do it here. Creating a new situation. Magenta. There it is. Saving it. And now I'm sending it to Apex. Upload my static file. Now, based on the location on the local file system, it knows that it's in application 100 because that's the folder name, the parent folder. So it knows that it's not a workspace application file or another application file. It knows exactly where to upload it to. Connected. Now I'm going to my here to my application, and let's see what happens. 100 static file source. Updated 20 seconds ago by me. And there it is, Magenta. So this way I can do my JavaScript or CSS development from within Visual Studio Code and interact with Visual Studio Code. And the only thing I need to do is have a browser window open and just refresh my browser. Cool. Questions on this? I'm going through the code, but do you have questions right now?
Yes. I mean, why is it even so complicated? I'm a bit shocked to see that if you develop with Apex and you'd like to use some other IDE, that you have to go through such a hassle.
I don't know why it's that complicated, but Apex is a system on itself. So it's built like being able to do that within Apex. So Apex can be seen as an IDE itself.
So also keep in mind, we are talking about different use cases here, right? So when I look at what Giliam showed first, that was the inline editing. And if you're a low coder who is doing small projects, right, doing a bit of file editing, you're doing it all in Apex, right? No visual code, no nothing, you're working in Apex, and you can do all of your job within Apex. Everything is doable. Now we are talking about, oh, I want to use visual code as well, and I want to integrate with Git. So we are now combining that low-code thing with other pieces of enterprise architecture, right? And now another option which Giliam doesn't even show, right, is of course you could place the files just on a plain web server directly. Then we wouldn't talk about anything of that, right? We would just edit the file, store it on the web server, and done. And the complexity or non-complexity of things depends a lot of what tools and components are you actually bringing together here, right? And then it might look a bit more complex here, a bit more simple there, but this then becomes pretty personal. And I have seen customers even doing other things with totally customized setups, which was actually for that customer saying, hey, it's super easy. I'm just clicking here and there, and here runs my script, and it's all so cool. And my first impression was, oh, that's quite some collection of scripts, right? That's the situation.
Was that an answer to your question?
Okay, yeah.
Cool. All right. Let's see, what do we need? Because these are some scripts, I will come back to that later on. This is what I wanted to show. We need a Visual Studio Code task, which is the task on top of the, which I executed, right? I said, give me the list of tasks I created it, and you need to configure this. This task will execute a bash script, and then that bash script will execute a SQL statement in a SQL I would say tool. That's the right word, tool. And since we have, we can also execute JavaScript within SQL, it's possible to do complicated stuff which is not possible with the usual SQL or PL SQL commands. This is an example of a task. So what we're doing is we're having a label, Apex export application, it's a shell type, and then saying I want to export my application, and the input field is the Apex app ID. So that's what I was typing in. I need to export application 100. Over here I have another example for download static files, which executes a lot of JavaScript. So you need to connect to your database. This is the simple variant of what it actually does, but this is just creating connection to the database, SQL, and then sending the SQL script to SQL together with your file name and your workspace. SQL wrapper, and then there's the query who queries from the Apex application static files, get that file and store that with JavaScript locally on your file system. Yeah, this is a function created by Chris Rice, which is a Java code getting that blob from the file system, from the Apex views, and then converting that to a character-based file on your local file system. Wow. Yeah, so we have Apex, we have Visual Studio Code, and we have Git. And now I manage it for my company to combine those, work on Visual Studio Code, and to make sure that we are doing a lot of CSS modifications quickly within Visual Studio Code and sending it to Apex, getting it back, etc., 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 and sending it to Git. And yes, Karsten is right, there's also the option to send it to your server as a file, but the company chooses not to do that, so company decision. But as we've seen before, using those scripts and Visual Studio Code and SQL and etc., it's now possible to, oh, wait, too fast. To work with Visual Studio Code in combination with Apex. Vincent, back in the days was working for Insum, created even a more sophisticated tool, Apex Nitro. But if you want to know more about that, you can look up for Apex Nitro or Vincent Monod, and it's doing minification and transpiling, etc., etc., etc. But it's more complex in my opinion, because that tool does do it all automatically, and here I'm in control of when I'm sending things to my to Apex and to the database, etc., etc. So I'm in control instead of the tool.
And we might add that Vincent is also a member of the Apex team for 18 months now. He developed that while he was at Insum. I'm not sure how much focus Insum still has on that tool.
I have no idea, but since Stefan came to Oracle and he built in the inline editing, I might think that Vincent now built this for Apex as well.
So Vincent has does a lot of stuff, so not one-on-one.
I know.
We don't know immediate means to do that one-on-one. But Vincent is working on the improvements in that area. Let me put it that way.
But if you're talking about working with Visual Studio Code and Apex, what's coming up? Because I'm still waiting for a new version of SQL Developer Next, which is basically an open source tool of Visual Studio Code and then modified to the situation for the Oracle database and all the things we could do. So this team is working on it and creating their own Visual Studio Code environment, so we can do all the things we do with SQL Developer, but then in the other tool. It looks a bit like this. This is one of the screenshots I could find. Maybe I should ask Jeff for a new one. But this is Visual Studio Code, and then as it might look with as the new version of SQL Developer, or like this. Awesome. Waiting for it. When is it coming out? You don't know? What I'm also waiting for is, you saw that I was working with Git and with comparing changes and stuff. And Apex can export your application as YAML. So it's really easy to compare changes and stuff. What I'm waiting for is the moment it can be imported as YAML, because then I can do my modifications even for a region or another component within my Visual Studio Code and send it to Apex.
That's planned. Won't arrive in 23.2.
Will?
That is planned. It will not arrive
Oh, not.
in 23.2,
Okay.
but it's being worked on.
Nice. Because if we have to look for changes within those files, it is possible, but sometimes it doesn't say anything, even to us as developers. But if we can look for changes in YAML style, then, or in YAML format, it's more easily to compare what has been changed, or actually has been changed, or not just moved. And another thing I still have to look into, that in one of the recent releases, they made it possible to export Apex and send it to Liquibase. And I don't have looked into that yet, but it seems like, cool, thanks. It seems like a real good method to do our version control with Git and Liquibase, etc. Questions? I've got 10 minutes, so I'm really, let's do this. Predefined responsiveness, isn't that a contradiction? It is, as you write it like that. What do I mean? We all know what responsiveness is, right? Depending on the width of our screen, our page items or our regions will modify based on that width. So you can tell Apex to spread that component over the complete region or the complete window or on a part of the window. On your left, same application. On your left, it's being displayed on your mobile phone or on your iPad, and on the right, it's a desktop. Completely different layout. You can see over here that the search bar is completely different. Well, this is all being made possible by the grid. So we have 12 columns, and each component, each region, each page item has specified how many columns it should take. 1, 6, 12, depends. We can make it static, right? We can tell Apex, this page item needs to be 2 columns width, or 4 columns width. But doing that makes it non-responsiveness, but it will, because it will always take up that 2, 3, or 4 columns, instead of based on your width of your window. Responsiveness classes, these are made in Apex, and they can control dynamically based on the width of your screen, or window, sorry, how many columns it should contain. So, for example, if you have a screen over here with a window which is between 1200 and 1399 pixels, we have this column XL class. And you can define, based on this window size, how many columns it should take up, it should contain. We can see here, we have a higher date, 9 June 1900 what? In my opinion, this page item is not showed or displayed correctly because it's unclear what the content of the higher date is. Might be 80, might be 90, whatever. So we want to make it bigger for this window size. So what we're doing is we're going to this column CSS class and adding some CSS classes, column with extra small size. We want to take this page item 4 columns, 3 with small, medium 3, large 3. And when I'm doing that, I'm still responsiveness, but based on the width of my window, now it shows this page item with a width of 4 columns. Well, looking at this chart, I can tell that Apex only switches the layout based on the range. So it will only switch when the window is 479 pixels, or 480 pixels, or 640, or 768, etc., etc. Now, let's go to Chrome. We have an option there, over here, where you can see your application depending on the device or width of your screen. Over there. And if you click on that, you can see that you get a responsiveness tab with some pixels. But it's also possible to define your own range. So if you know that Apex only switches on those minimum ranges, you can identify or define your own range sets which Apex uses, and then just check your application, each page, whether your application and each column and region looks fine within every window, or at least the windows you use. You can see that I'm using full HD a lot because I'm creating desktop applications, but it's very easy to see this same application, same page, as a 768 pixels width. And just check whether all the columns are showed correctly, displayed correctly. A very fast way, in my opinion, to validate my layout of my application. Thank you. Cool. Quick tips, questions on that?
Why are you using such a short month, just June instead of November?
Sorry?
Why are you using such a short month to see whether your box is big enough? There's a 4-character month, June, instead of the big ones, November or December.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I should have used, but in this case, wait. Over here is visible that 1981 is also not completely displayed. But yeah, you're true. I should change my my screenshot. Cool. Quick tips. Oh yeah, I'm going to show you this one. It's one of my most used tips. Yeah, this one. When I'm having a new environment. Because over here, let's go to the Apex Builder application 100, and doesn't matter, employee. This is the basic setup. Let's make it big, like this. Who uses this this layout tab. Sometimes, not a lot. What I'm using a lot over here are the attributes. Or when I'm in a interactive grid or some other region type, I have some attributes over here as well. So what I'm going to do, I want this to be in the middle. And this one can be moved to the right. It's completely free format in how you build up your builder layout. This is the layout I use a lot. But know that no matter what you like, it's possible to move those tabs around in the way you like. How many minutes do I have?
2 more. It's still 40. 2 more
Cool.
minutes.
Okay, last tip. We all know this, right? Probably. There is an Apex clone session parameter which will clone your current session to another session, so you have two complete independent running instances of your application at that moment. But what if you want to do that for the Apex builder? It's not there. So what you can do, you can make a window privately. So it's completely sandboxed, that's it. But you can do that only once, right? And if you need more, you need to use multiple browsers, which is kind of crazy because it can look differently depending on the browser you use. What I'm doing a lot as well is having multiple Apex builder sessions open, same page, different version, and compare the changes. And it's possible if you use the multi-login extension for Chrome. Each tab, no, I don't have time to show that anymore, but each tab will then, it's visible in Chrome like the Fox open source plugin. And if you open a new tab, it's completely sandboxed. And you can create as many tabs as you like. So you can create as many Apex Builder instances at that same moment as you like. I'm using it a lot. Yeah. Well, I have some shortcuts, but I'm over time, so I'm stopping. Take a picture if you like. A lot of resources I use a lot. Okay, cool. Do we have time for another question?
For questions, yeah.
Questions? No? Otherwise, we'll do it afterwards. Thank you very much, and I hope you like this conference, this day, and hope to see you afterwards at the drinks. Thank you.